Well, I guess I feel comfortable enough to talk about it. It was a while ago. It was back in November. I've mourned, not really, grieved, did what I had to do, healed. It took months. But I finally got back to myself, for the most part. Well, I was about 12, 13 weeks. And I was supposed to go to the doctor a couple days prior to this. Subutex doctor. So I could get my prescription refilled. Well, because they were overbooked. Now, mind you, my appointment was scheduled 2 weeks prior to this. And they were overbooked, so we're going to have to send you home. You'll have to come in tomorrow. Well, I flipped the fuck out as anybody would. I'm like, no. You know for a damn fact that I'm pregnant, and you know that my prescription ran out today, and it's literally against their policy. Against their policy. To send a pregnant woman away with no medication, knowing that they don't have anything. Well, the fucking cunt was like, you're gonna have to leave. We don't have enough room. We can't see you today. You're gonna have to come in tomorrow. I'm like, no, I'm not coming the fucking tomorrow. I am here now. Like my appointment time was supposed to be. Not my problem. You don't know how to run a facility, and you overbook people. You book people 5 fucking minutes apart, but you only see one motherfucker every 45 minutes. You need to get your shit in order. Well, instead of scheduling me for the next day like she was supposed to, she scheduled me 5 days later, that Saturday. Well, I was already going through withdrawal a little bit. It wasn't... You can go about 3 days without anything and be fairly okay. But after day 3, it gets really rough. Like, it really hits you. And I was really sick. Like, I needed something. And I can't do Suboxone because I was pregnant. Well, I ended up having a miscarriage 4 days later. And I 110% believe it was because they forced me to go through withdrawal. Climb up the ladder, not the slide. You know better.
No, I tried. I tried not. I can't.
Ow! Do not climb up the slide. The ladder, or I'm taking the slide off of it. Can't be showing your brother how to do bad shit like that.
No!
Ooh. The not listening is really starting to get on my nerves. Well, it was about 11:30 at night, and I woke up not feeling the greatest, of course, and I woke up and went to the bathroom, and that's when I noticed that my pants were wet. And when I pulled them down, there was blood, and I felt this 2 big gushes, and it just plop, plop. I'm like, what the fuck? Oh my God. And then it hit me. I'm having a miscarriage. And Fred was asleep. The kids were asleep. Everybody was asleep. And I woke him up and I'm like, Fred, you got to get up. I got to go to the hospital. And he's like, what? Like, he's incoherent. Because I just woke him up. He probably went to sleep like maybe an hour ago. Maybe. Hard to say. I wasn't awake, so I don't know. Well, come on, Meep Meep. Come on, gotta go over here with your brother. Yeah, you can take your toys with you. Yeah. I can't be in two places at once, and I'm not gonna try. Come on. Hunter Matthew. I'm not talking out of my ass. Let's go. Evidently I am. I always talk out of my ass. Ha ha ha. You think it's fucking funny and it ain't. This is exactly why I don't bring both of you kids outside at the same time by myself. Well, I woke Fred up and I'm like, I'm bleeding. I need to go to the hospital. He's like, what? He was a little shocked, and as anybody would be, you know, you don't really expect it to happen, especially after 2 successful pregnancies. I had a miscarriage before my first, but it wasn't really a viable pregnancy because it was only like 4 weeks along. There wasn't even a heartbeat yet. So I don't even really count that as a pregnancy. Well, I got what I need. I changed my pants because they were soaked. Like, my water broke. And I changed, and I got a towel, and I put it in between my legs because I didn't know what to expect. You know, bleeding-wise, I just knew that I was going to bleed a lot. So I shoved a towel between my legs, and I went and picked up my girlfriend because I needed somebody to go with me in case something went south. And, you know, so I took her with me and her 5-year-old son. Well, we get to Uniontown Hospital, and I walk in. I'm really cramping at this point. Like, I can't really walk the greatest. But I made it from the car to the building, and by this time, I had no idea how bad it really was. And there were 4 people in, like, the waiting room. And I believe it was all men. Yeah, it was all men. And me and Chelsea were the only women in the room at the time. And other than the secretary. And she's like, name, date of birth, just asking questions all slow. And I'm like, look, I really don't, like, I need to be in the ER right now. Like, I can't, like, I feel like I'm going to pass out. And I had my hand between my legs because I could feel the blood just dripping. So I put my hand between my legs to try to stop it so nobody else could see it. And that's when everything went bad. Like, it just started gushing. It went right around my hand. My hand was soaked in blood. My pants at this point were already soaked in blood. I'm looking down, and there's just this puddle of blood on the floor. Chelsea starts freaking out. She's like, you need to get somebody in here right the fuck now. And she's like, well, there's no need to be swearing. I have patience. And then one of the guys was like, nobody gives a fuck. Somebody needs to get her some help. And he went and grabbed me a wheelchair and set me down in it. And I didn't even know I don't know who this guy was. I have no idea who he was. He was just a guy in the waiting room. And, like, in the lobby where, like, you check in or whatever, and they do your vitals in the one little office. Well, well, it doesn't move because the wheels are messed up. I told you it needs new brackets. Because they're bent. Well, this guy, like, started tripping. He's like, yo, she is bleeding out the ass. Like, somebody needs to fucking do something. And the one bitch in the one office was like, I have patients in here. You need to watch your language. He's like, I don't give a fuck about your whatever the fuck you're doing. He's like, this woman is bleeding, and you are just fucking standing there doing nothing. So, he got me a wheelchair, put me in it, and then the secretary wheeled me back to ER, and she's like, we're under the impression that she's having a miscarriage, but we're not sure what's going on. I didn't get any information. I'm like, well, of course you're not going to get any information. I'm literally standing here like this, bleeding all over the floor. At this point, I'm really dizzy. Like, I feel like I'm going to black out, and I just started leaning up against I let go from down here, covered in blood, and I just put my hands up against the counter, and there was blood all over the counter now. And that's when they really got things moving. Like, that's when dude was like, yo, because when I took my hands away, because I'm like, I feel like I'm going to black out. That's when it just, like, all hit the floor. And it was really bad. I mean, people were scared for me. They're like, yo, you need to fucking do something. Like, this ain't funny. It's like, you need to do something for her. Well, I get back there, they put a bed pad underneath me, and the nurse was really fucking ignorant. There was no need for the way that I was treated at all whatsoever. Like, I'm still half debating to file a fucking lawsuit for medical malpractice, and I know I would win. Because that's exactly what medical malpractice is. They did absolutely nothing for me. They gave me IV fluids and that was it. They claimed that, well, if you want to, you can wait until 7 o'clock when our ultrasound techs get here. I'm like, I am not going to fucking wait until no 7 o'clock. I'm like, I need to know what is going on now. And she's like, well, we can't do anything until 7 o'clock. And I'm like, and I know that's a bullshit lie, bitch. Don't sit there and talk to me like I'm fucking stupid. Like, she was really starting to irritate me. And I asked for oxygen because I wasn't feeling the greatest. Like, my heart rate was 127 and above. Like, my blood pressure was dropping dramatically. And they were doing absolutely fucking nothing about it. Nothing. Not a goddamn thing. And Chelsea starts freaking the fuck out. She's like, yo, y'all need to do something for her. Like, you need to control her blood pressure. You need to do something about this bleeding. Like, you need to do something. And they're like, well, she's having a miscarriage. There's nothing we can do but let it carry out. Okay, well, bitch, what if my fucking uterus ruptured? Then what? Which is what I had a fear of after being there for 3.5 hours, still continuously bleeding at the same rate, like a lot of blood, like 7 bed pads is what I filled up. And I looked at Chelsea after the doctor was like, well, there's nothing we can do. You're having a miscarriage.
I closed the door.
I fucking know what I'm having, you dumb bastard. I don't need you to fucking remind me. Well, the nurse comes in and she's like, well, we can give you more IV fluids. And what the fuck is that going to do for my extreme blood loss? Nothing. So, I told Chelsea, I gave her my car keys, and I'm like, go get my car and pull it up front. I'll meet you. And they're like, are you leaving? I'm like, yes, bitch, I'm leaving. Because I really feel like that if I fucking stay here, I'm going to goddamn die. So, I'm like, because you're doing absolutely fucking nothing. You aren't doing anything for me. So, I'm going to leave and go to another hospital. I'm like, and believe I'm probably going to file a fucking lawsuit. So, be waiting for it, bitch. And I crawled from the room all the way to the parking lot. Chelsea helped me in the car because, like, at this point, I am ghost white. I have nothing left to me. I have no energy. I have barely any breath in my body. I just couldn't move. And I'm in extreme pain. I'm still bleeding all over the place. They wouldn't even give me a pair of fucking pants to wear. I literally walked out of there with a gown wrapped around my ass and my bloody pants in a bag. Well, in my car, I'm bleeding everywhere. You know, I'm in the passenger seat, bleeding everywhere. Chelsea's freaking the fuck out. She don't know what to do. I said, take me to another hospital. And coming down 119 back towards Connellsville, I didn't feel right. Like, I really felt like I was gonna die. So, I'm like, take me to Connellsville. So, she did, without hesitation, took me to Connellsville. And she ran in and was like, I need help. My friend's having a miscarriage and I can't move her by myself. And they're like, fuck. So 3 nurses ran outside and a doctor ran outside, grabbed a wheelchair, pulled me out of my car. I had a bloody rag between my legs to try to, you know, help a little bit from getting blood all over my car. But there were leather seats, so I really didn't care. I was losing my daughter, so I really didn't give a fuck. So they get me out of the car and into the first room in ER, and they start asking questions. And like, at this point, I'm so incoherent. I've lost so much blood. I am ghost white. I mean ghost white. I mean, I'm white as fuck, but you could tell something was wrong. And they hooked up machines to my chest, and they're like, her heart rate's really low. Like, it was like 80 beats per minute or something like that. Like, I could feel myself shutting down. And I'm like, this isn't good. Like, I don't feel good. That's all I could say. I don't feel good. I don't feel good. And I was fighting to stay awake. Like, I really couldn't. Like, I had lost so much blood that I really thought that I was going to die. Because I know what dying feels like. There's a scar that runs the whole way from wrist to armpit. It starts here, there's a slit here, and then it goes up through my tattoo, and it stops right here. Now, that happened when I was 5, and at that point, I lost a lot of blood then, too. Like, I was near death. Like, the doctor that worked on me said that it was an absolute miracle that I was alive. I should have died on my way to the hospital in the back of that ambulance, and for some reason, I didn't. So, I know what dying feels like, because I was dying. And that's a trauma you don't forget. Like, that's a feeling you don't forget. That feeling of your life is literally slipping, and there's nothing you can do about it. I felt just like that. I felt helpless. There was nothing I could do, and it felt like there was nothing anybody else could do. Well, they're asking me all kinds of questions. I'm trying to answer, but I'm like hardly talking. It's difficult to speak at this point in time. And I called Fred with what little energy I had left. I just hit the call button twice, and Fred immediately picked up like the second ring. And they're like, who's that? And they seen Babe. So they're like, is this your husband? I'm like, yeah, because they seen the ring on my finger. They're like, is that your husband? I'm like, yeah. Well, I just like nodded my head because I couldn't talk. And then he's like, what's going on? And they're like, we're not sure. I guess that's why she called you. And because that was the only thing I knew to do, because they wouldn't let Chelsea in. They wouldn't let her in to tell them what was going on, because she knew everything. And Fred's like, well, where the fuck is Chelsea? Chelsea can answer all these questions. I can't. I'm not there. I don't know what's going on. Well, no, down here. It's Stay down here out of the field. There's buggies up there. Ticks. You had a tick not that long ago. Well, Fred, to the best of his ability, he tries to help these nurses and doctors figure out what's going on. Because, you know, all they knew is that I was bleeding. And I had lost a tremendous amount of blood. Obviously. I was still bleeding really heavy. I said down here. I meant it. Let's go.
No.
You don't need to be up there. Stay out of the fields. Well, come on, now. Fred's trying to answer questions that he can't. And Chelsea's not there to tell them what's going on or what happened or why I'm there. They had a general idea. They were going to do a blood transfusion because they're like, how much blood have you lost? And I'm just like, a lot. Fred's like, I don't know, but I know that she was bleeding really heavy when she left. And they wouldn't do anything for her at Uniontown, so she left. Penelope, you are so dirty. Like, there was no empathy at Uniontown either. Like, they truly did not give a fuck. They didn't care. At all. And this used to be a hospital that delivered babies, like, a year and a half prior. And they still have OBGYN services and ultrasounds and blah, 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 and all of that. Well, Conazole gave me a shot, hooked me up to fluids. They were going to do a blood transfusion. They weren't sure how much blood that I'd actually lost. So they weren't sure if that was a good idea or not. And I'm like, just do what you got to do. And I fell out again. And Fred's like, what's going on? And they're like, I don't know. She just passed out again. We can't wake her up. And I'm just like, kind of like moving back and forth, trying to, you know, like, I can hear you, but I can't respond to you. And the nurse touched me, and she's like, she's so cold. And like, she was genuinely scared for me. And the older nurse was scared too. Like, you could tell that they actually cared about what happened to their patients. Like, this girl just came in 10 minutes ago, and she's probably going to die in our bed. What the fuck? Like, so they're like, maybe a blood transfusion. The doctor's like, what's your blood type? What's her blood type? And they didn't know. I didn't know. So he pricked my finger, and he's like, okay, she's A positive. And he's like, get 2 units of blood. And I think I was asleep for about 2 hours. And these nurses kept coming back and checking on me. Like, they would get these heated blankets out of like a warmer, and they would keep throwing them on top of me. They would take one, throw it in the warmer, and then bring me one from the warmer and put it on me to try to keep my body temp up, because my body temperature was dropping and my heart rate was dropping and my blood pressure was really low. So they really didn't know, you know, what was going to happen. And I woke up, and the one nurse was like, she's awake, she's awake. So the doctor came running back in, and he's like, how are you feeling? I'm like, awful. I feel like I'm going to black out. And like, he felt me, and he started touching my belly, and he's like, does this hurt? And I cringed my face a little bit, because it did hurt, but not like it did before. And down here now.
Up here.
No, you don't need up there. You stay away from up here. There's snakes and everything in this fucking field. You kids don't listen. Let's go. Down here. You're going to end up going in the house. Keep not listening. No.
That truck. That's him. That's him truck.
No, it's not anybody's truck. It's Mommy's truck.
Mommy's truck? The mommy truck?
Yeah, the Mommy truck.
No, it's him truck.
No. Well, the doctor was like, I'm going to go get a couple of things. A lot of things that Uniontown didn't fucking do that they very well could have. Connersville, this doctor went and got a tablet, like a tablet, and like a little ultrasound stick. And he's like, I'm gonna do a pelvic exam after this. I'm like, okay. And the one nurse came in and flipped me over on my side and gave me a shot in my right ass cheek. And right after I got that shot, I felt a little bit better. Like the bleeding started to slow down then. I don't know what it was, but she said this will help you with the bleeding. I said, okay. I'm still out of breath, white as a ghost, can hardly talk. And she was older and there was a younger one. And she's like, the doctor's gonna do whatever he can to help. I'm like, okay. Just do what you gotta do. Don't let me die. I don't want to die like this. And she's like, we won't let you die.
I can't find him.
For some reason, this part's really hard to talk about.
No.
The empathy that they showed. Because they were both parents, you know, so they didn't know what it was like to lose a child. So they really felt for me. And in a way, I appreciated it. Because it was nice to finally have somebody that cared. You know, after 6.5 hours of feeling like I'm dying and I'm going to bleed to death, finally I'm somewhere where I feel like I'm going to be taken care of to the max. And they did everything that they could. They did. And while I was asleep, they did give me one unit of blood.
Flower.
Yeah, it's a flower. They did give me a unit of blood and more IV fluids. And they did a pelvic exam, the doctor did. I mean, he's no OBGYN. He didn't really know what, but, you know, he had some experience. All of them do. They have at least a little bit of training in OB.
Flower.
Yeah, there's a buggy on that one. Or maybe not. Maybe it's just dead. Well, when he did the little ultrasound, and then he did a pelvic exam, and he said that my cervix was fully dilated, and I should be right at the end. Like, I'm almost, he said, you're almost done. It's not going to be that much longer.
Good.
And he confirmed that there was no heartbeat. Yeah, flower. He confirmed that there was no heartbeat. And I guess that's when I broke down. Hearing it, like actually hearing it, just shattered me. Because even though, you know, it wasn't planned, I wasn't really ready for another baby, it didn't change the fact that I loved it anyway. I did find out that it was a girl. Me and Fred named her Brooklyn. It just wasn't easy. It was just nice that they cared so much. Like, I didn't feel any of that at Uniontown. They made me feel like I didn't matter. And nobody should feel that way, ever. You shouldn't feel like the hospital you're at is a place that you're gonna die in because they genuinely don't give a fuck. And I'm glad I did leave because I really felt like if I'd have stayed there, I'd have died. Well, the doctor confirmed miscarriage, said that my cervix was fully dilated. I should be right about at the end. There's nothing left. It's just blood and clots that I would be passing. So he's like, do you want to go home? We feel like, because my heart rate came back up, my blood pressure was starting to be a little more stable. And the nurse came in and gave me a shot after it was all done. And I couldn't hold it in anymore, and I just lost it. I cried, as anybody would. And she said, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, you have no idea what I went through tonight. I'm like, there was no reason for the way that them fucking doctors and nurses talked to me. Like, you're having a miscarriage. What do you think's gonna happen? You're gonna bleed. Who the fuck says that? What kind of fucking doctor are you? Like, get the fuck real. Like, yeah, that's something that you say to a mother of two that's losing a child. Yeah, that's exactly what the fuck you say. And these nurses were so nice. Like, they were so empathetic. The one cried with me, and that really, I don't know, it hit me really hard. And it made me cry harder. And I'm like, yeah, I just want to go home. I just want to go home. So my phone was on 4%. I had no charger. I had no way to charge it. Chelsea had my car because she had to take her son home. Because it was like 4 in the morning. And so she took him home, and she came and picked me up. And I dropped her off. I mean, I really shouldn't have been driving, but I really didn't have a choice. I felt like I was going to black out the whole time. But I managed to get home, and I sat in my car for a little bit because I was so tired. Like, I was so exhausted. I just felt like death. Every time I got up, my heart would race and beat real hard, and because I lost a lot of blood. Like, I lost a lot of blood. 7 bed pads. And then the 3 additional at Connellsville. And I still have half a mind to file a lawsuit. I really do. There was no reason for the way that they treated me. And they treated me like absolute shit. Like I didn't matter. That's how I felt. I felt like I didn't matter. And I got home, and Fred was asleep. He had to work the next day, so I didn't expect him to stay up all night and wait for me. And I walked in. I didn't really walk. I kind of crawled from my car to the house, which isn't very far. Car's parked right where my Cadillac is, and the front door is right there. And I got in the house, and Fred didn't hear me come in. I don't think anybody heard me come in. Nobody heard me pull in the driveway. And the dogs were all quiet, like they were waiting for me. And I feel like they were waiting for me, like they were waiting for me to come home because they all knew something was wrong. You know, dogs have that sixth sense. They know everything. And they were like sitting at the door. They didn't bark. And when somebody pulls in the driveway, they always bark. Always. But when they seen my car, they didn't do anything. They just sat right at the door and waited for me to walk in. And when I walked in, they were right behind me the whole way. And I sat down at the kitchen table, trying to take everything in. Like, what just happened? What the fuck did I just go through? And the whole time, you know, I was on the phone with my mom, Fred, back and forth. And they're like, what are they doing for you? And I'm like, nothing. They're not doing anything. Like, what do I do? Just sit here and die? And my mom's like, leave. Leave. If you feel like you're that bad, leave. So I did. And I went to another hospital. Like, the doctors at Uniontown were so rude. For no reason. Like, you don't fucking treat people like that. You don't. And, like, in my notes, my medical notes, there was, like, shit about my car in there. Like, patient was reluctant to hand over keys to friend. Well, of course. For one, it's my car. She doesn't have a fucking driver's license. We're in the middle of fucking Uniontown. The police station's right down the street. There's fucking cops everywhere. Like, yeah, I am a little reluctant to give her my keys because that'll jack my fucking insurance rates up and I can't pay for that shit.
I can't.
I pay fucking $600 every 6 months. Because I pay my insurance by the 6 months. Well, there was just unnecessary information in my medical notes. Like, it didn't make any sense. Like, it should have never been there. Like, information that was irrelevant to me. Like, why is there info about my car in there and my friend? Like, none of your fucking business. You need to be, this is what we did, this is what the patient did, this is what was happening. No, it wasn't like that at all. It was just all kinds of dumb shit that shouldn't have been there. And I get home, and Fred's asleep. Nobody heard me come in. Dogs were quiet as could be. And I laid down, and I didn't think that I would feel that bad, you know? Like, it was awful. Like, I felt like I had a stroke at one point. Like, I just couldn't feel anything on the left side, and I couldn't for like 2 weeks. I could barely walk. I could barely talk. My face drooped a little bit, and it still does if you really look. Like, it's not all the same. Like, it's not very symmetrical. And Uniontown did absolutely nothing, but Connersville, you know, they're like, do you want us to run testing? Do you want an MRI? Do you want a CT scan? Like, I'm like, no, I just want to go home. I just want to go home. So they're like, okay, you know, you're right about at the end, so you're going to bleed for a couple days, but it's not going to be like this. And, I almost passed out walking from my front door to the living room, which is, the kitchen table is right there where the AC is, and then that window right there is the living room. So it's a straight shot. And it was really hard to walk, just move, breathe in general. It was hard. And I made it to the living room, and I like fell on top of Fred. I didn't mean to, but I was just so out of it that I really didn't know what I was doing. I really didn't. And I like fell on top of him, and he startled awake, and he's like, are you okay? When did you get home? And I'm like, just now. And he's like, what happened? And I just looked at him and shook my head. And he's like, We lost it. Yeah. That's all I could say. Yeah. Like, it wasn't an easy process. It never is. It's never easy. It's never, ever easy. And before the miscarriage happened, like a week prior, I had blood work done for genetic screening. And you can find out the gender of the baby that way. And we found out, like, a week after the miscarriage, that we lost a girl. So, you know, we said that if we had a girl, we were going to name her Brooklyn Marie Faith. So, I kind of had like a little vigil for myself. And I popped a little confetti cannon because everybody wanted to know what the baby was. And I was like, it's a girl, but she's not here anymore. You know, it's just not really something easy to talk about. I thought I was ready, but I guess not. Come on, Meep Meep, up here. I can't up here. Oh, my back. I haven't really talked about it since it's happened. But I need to. You know, I need to. Or I'm never going to move past it. And it's kind of personal to share, but you know, I share everything else, so why not? I'm trying not to knock my beads off. So I keep looking at the screen when I wipe. Probably going to have to glue them back on. I thought I could talk about it a little bit, but I guess not. But I made it home. I was alive. Barely, but I was alive. And me and Fred just laid there and cried. Because even though we weren't expecting another baby, that's not exactly what we wanted at that point in time, it didn't change the fact that that was our daughter, you know? It didn't change anything. It just made it harder, if anything. Like, it made me change my mind completely about wanting kids anymore. Like, I mean, getting pregnant again and having any more, because I didn't want that same outcome. And here I am, pregnant again, horrified. Come on, Meep Meep, up here. You play up here so Mommy sees you. You're not playing with fucking weeds. Oh, God. Come on. Oh, you playing in the sand? Daddy needs to make him another sandbox. The next day, my mom called me quite a few times, but I didn't answer, so she got worried. And she drove up the road, and she walked in, and she's like, Alexis! I couldn't respond. Because it was the day after, like it was just a few hours after, and she was worried. I put my phone on charge, laid it next to me. I could hear it, but I just couldn't move. I didn't really want to either. And she's like, are you okay? And I'm like, no, not at all. I feel awful. And she's like, you look awful. I said, I imagine. Like, she's like, no, like, you are white. Like, you are ghost white. And I'm like, I know. And I just looked so defeated. Like, destroyed. Like, it looked like I just went through war and barely made it out. Like, my heart rate was really fast. I couldn't walk very far without help, or I'd collapse. That happened quite a few times because I was home alone a lot of the time, and Holden was just little. Now, come on, why are you throwing stuff in the pool? Ugh. I'll get your weed, hold on. Well, my mom ended up taking my oldest, and she told the people that were staying here, Chris, that there is no way, and there really was no way. Like, I was like, Mom, I need your help. She's like, for what? I'm like, I gotta go to the bathroom. So she literally had to fucking carry me to the bathroom. And she's like, if you're really this weak, I'm taking Chunkin. I'm like, okay. I'm like, it's not like I can take care of him anyway. And then she's like, Chris! And he came running out, and he's like, what, what's up? What's going on? And she's like, you're gonna have to take care of this baby. There's no way that she's gonna be able to get off of the couch and take care of him. So my mom kept Chunkin for like a week and a half. Because every day she would come up and check on me, like to see if I was doing okay. Come on! Get up this way! What are you two fighting about? Well, quit it. She came up and checked on me every day. And up until, like, I could get up on my own and walk around a little bit. And I was down for, like, 2 months. Like, it was bad. Like, my heart would beat real hard. My heart rate was real high. I had this little finger thing that would, you know, read my heart rate and my oxygen rate. And the lowest my heart rate was around that time was resting was 114. And the highest was 140 to 152. And she's like, you really need to take care of yourself. You really need to be careful with what you're doing. I'm like, I know. I just laid around because that's all I could do. I just laid around. There was really nothing else that I was capable of. I just laid around. What are we doing? Okay, as long as you're not fucking killing each other, I guess. I mean, yeah, my mom had Chunk for like a week and a half. She had him for 13 days, so almost 2 weeks, really. Holden, I really couldn't do anything with or for him for about 3 weeks. I literally didn't have the strength to pick him up or do anything for him. Like, it was to the point where somebody else had to do everything for me. Like, I needed help getting to the bathroom. I needed help laying down. I needed help getting up. I needed help getting food. Like, I couldn't do anything. Like, I was so weak. And I never thought that, you know, that I would ever end up being that bad. Little did I know. But the hospital actually called me, like, three days after it happened, because everything's on file. You know, my phone number, everything, nothing's different. My address, everything's the same. It's been the same for the last 5 years. Well, phone number's been the same for the last 15 years, but address has been the same for 5, 6. And they're like, is this Alexis? I'm like, yeah. And it was one of the nurses, Carolyn. And she's like, it's Carolyn, the nurse. How are you feeling? Are you okay? I'm like, no, not really. And she's like, do you want to come? Do you want me to send an ambulance to come get you? And I started bawling. And I'm like, why do you care so much? You know? Like, Uniontown didn't care like that. Because they didn't. They didn't care at all about anything. They were just so damn rude. Like, there was no reason for how ignorant that they were, you know? Like, it was just uncalled for. And Collinsville staff was so unbelievably nice. Like, they were so empathetic. They hugged me. They cried with me. It was nice to see that there are medical professionals out there that care. Because I was kind of expecting the same thing from Collinsville that I got from Uniontown, but I got the exact opposite. The exact opposite. Uniontown didn't give a damn, and Collinsville did everything that they could to make sure that, because I'm like, I don't want to die like this. I don't want to die. I have 2 little boys at home. I don't want to die like this. And I expressed a concern that, you know, I wanted to know if my uterus was ruptured and if that's why I was bleeding so much. And they confirmed that it wasn't ruptured, thankfully. It was just really rough. It was a rough 2 months. And it was really hard for me at my mom's wedding, too, because at her wedding, I was supposed to be 7 months pregnant. I was supposed to be due this month. And for some reason, I just feel like the baby would have been born July 17th. I don't know why, but I feel like that's when she would have been born. And now I'm pregnant again, absolutely mortified about it. I'm 12 weeks 1 day, so I'm out of the first trimester, but that doesn't mean anything. And I mean, I've had blood work done, everything's good. I got to go in for my genetic screening and all that. But so far, everything's good. Like, I'm not bleeding like I was previous pregnancy, which was a little concerning to me because I never bled like that before while pregnant. So I'm like, something's not right. And I kept calling the doctor and telling them about it. And they're like, oh, it's normal. Like, yeah, bleeding's normal. Okay. Right. What you doing? Playing in the chance? Why are you dumping sand in your hair, mans? You're gonna have to get a backy. Not right now. Play outside for a little bit. But, I think I'm going to end it on that note. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk, I guess. I'm going to go play with the kids because I've been on YouTube for the last hour telling a story that I really didn't want to tell, but I did it, surprisingly. I thought I was ready to talk about it and not cry, but for some reason, when I talk about Collinsville Hospital staff, I tear up every time because they were just so amazing. The nurses were great. The doctor was great. Just amazing people. The care that they showed was just out of this world. The doctor even offered therapy and counseling. He's like, I can refer you to Dada counseling. And, you know, I'm like, I don't know. I really don't know. I want to go home. That's all I want right now is I want to go home. Just wasn't. It wasn't an easy time. It wasn't an easy couple months. I was really bad off. Really bad. Like, I can't even describe the way. It was almost like I was dying. Like, I just didn't feel right. I didn't feel remotely okay. Like, my heart would beat so hard that my chest would hurt, and it would beat so fast that my chest would hurt, and I would get extremely dizzy. I would black out. I would fall. It happened quite a few times, and I basically had to have somebody babysit me every day for almost 2 months. Oh, my back. Are we still dumping sand in each other's hair? No. Okay. No. It was just calling his little staff. I never thought, you know, because the hospital that I left was one of the best hospitals to go to. That's why I went there. But to feel the way that I felt, and felt like that if I stayed there any longer, I was going to die. That's not a hospital you want to go to. And I have not stepped foot in that hospital since. And I won't. Because if I see that nurse, I'm going to knock her fucking teeth out. And if I see that doctor, I'm going to knock his fucking teeth out. For the way that they talked to me. There was absolutely no reason for my treatment. What the fuck soever. And Collinsville staff was the exact opposite. They were very empathetic. They cared. They wanted to know how I felt, how I was doing. They wanted to know everything. Like, they did everything that they could to the maximum. Like, Uniontown was like, oh, well, you gotta wait until 7:30 when the ultrasound techs get here. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna wait that long. There is something you can do. Like, you can go get a tablet or something. And she's like, no, we're going to wait for the ultrasound techs. And I'm like, well, I'm not. I'm leaving. Because I feel like if I stay here any longer, I'm going to die. And I went to Collinsville. They gave me a shot. They gave me an ultrasound. And they're not even a hospital that has OB services. So that says a lot. The doctor did a pelvic exam, an ultrasound, confirmed that I had a miscarriage, confirmed that there was no life visible, and it was just blood and clots. Gave me a shot for the bleeding, something Uniontown didn't do or even think about doing. They gave me blood. They only gave me 1 unit because they weren't sure how much I actually needed. So they gave me a unit, and that really helped. They kept me hydrated. And they said in like 7 days, check up with your OB. And I did. But I'm going to get off of YouTube now because I've been on for 59 minutes. And I think I've been outside since 5:30. Oh my God, it's 7 o'clock. Holy fuck. Oh my God, it's 7 o'clock. Almost 8. 7:40. I'm going to play with the kids a little bit before we got to go inside. Daddy should be coming home soon. So we'll wait for Daddy, and then we're going to get in the pool and then do whatever. Thanks for coming to my little TED Talk.